Maps that were created. Hopefully you can see the maps and photographs. I know they show up a little bit differently than the text. All the little dots are showing houses in the downtown area, and what we're getting at here is looking to see again where the most amount of people live, and the circles that you see around those dots is a 1/4 mile radius, because that is generally accepted to be a distance within which most people will easily walk somewhere rather than get into a car. We also looked out on the county road a bit, and then making connection up to the lighthouse for bikers. Can you all see this okay? You're comfortable with the visual? Okay. What these colors and symbols are showing you, the colored lines are showing you the condition of the existing sidewalks. And we're using a DOT rating here. The darkest greens telling us that the sidewalks are relatively new and are in good condition and have a long lifespan. The slightly lighter green is telling us that it's a slightly older sidewalk, but it still has a fairly long lifespan, up to about 10 years. And again, for those of us who conducted this assessment, we're not sidewalk experts. So we were just using our best understanding from looking at the sidewalk, looking at the conditions, and making assumptions about how well they might hold up. So if any of you in this community have a better knowledge than we represented here, I just want to make clear that this is a draft, and one of the reasons why I'm here is to gather your thoughts and concerns about what we might have gathered from information. So if there's something here that really doesn't resonate, please talk to me about it. And so on down the line. So the yellow tells us that the sidewalk might be good for about 5 years. Purple is needing significant renovation within 2 years. And then the red tells us that this is a very old facility, very old sidewalk that's got a lot of damage to it and needs to be replaced or abandoned immediately.
I can't see the red. Is the red?
Yeah, could we possibly turn the lights down?
I think if you do, they'll all go out.
Oh, okay, all right.
There you go.
Right there,
Yeah, I know.
Can you see that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's better.
Okay.
No one stand up and walk.
Okay, and once we get through the photographs, you can turn them back on. And then the symbols show us the ADA obstructions. We've got abrupt ends where a sidewalk just stops. So if you're going along in a wheelchair, for instance, or with a walker, you suddenly are forced out into the street, or you find yourself on a sidewalk that has like a drop in it, and you can't get where you're trying to go. The checkered pattern shows missing connections where there's sidewalk going along, then it kind of peters out, often into grass, and then picks up again, maybe 50 feet away or something. And then the green circle shows us where vegetation has overgrown so badly that it's difficult to get around. So, yeah.
Could you just go back a minute?
Yep.
Is it okay if I ask you a question?
Please, yeah.
Water Street. From where I'm sitting, I know that it has sidewalks, but I don't see any colors on.
It's
along
green.
Water Street.
You can't, yeah, unfortunately, I guess it's because the background is blue. The wall is blue, so you're not quite able to see it.
Okay.
Water Street is all, we gave Water Street almost completely an A. And then the very end, towards the post office.
Can I take you back on Water Street and show you some of the places that are not an A?
Sure. Yeah. Well, a lot of it was new.
Does new, but like out in front of the Mulholland Gallery, the bumps are still there that people fell over last year and the year
Okay.
before.
Well then, perhaps.
No, those are repaired. I have a question, Chris. During the 2003 comprehensive plan, your predecessor, Jeremy Gabrielson, had done a sidewalk
Yes.
survey. Did you guys utilize that
Yep,
for this?
yes, this is
Okay.
all of his information has been plugged into this map.
Okay.
Yep. And some of the photographs that I'm gonna show.
I thought so. I thought I
were taken by
recognized
him. Yeah, so we really just took his information and started using it to another degree to try to get some other information for you. So I'm just gonna show you some of the different types of obstructions that I just listed, which may be difficult for people in walkways, with canes, with maybe knee or hip problems, balance issues, wheelchairs. And also thinking about little children who are learning how to ride or aren't super good riders yet, the problems that they might encounter.
There's actually some concrete under that section that's been paved over so many times that now the easiest way to handle that was to create a drain swale to stop erosion of neighboring properties with more asphalt, which I wanted to know, is asphalt really an approved sidewalk surface?
It must be, because I've seen it in a number of towns. I'm not a
Yeah,
sidewalk
yeah, yeah.
expert, but I do see it. Here's an example of a number of things going on. A lot of uneven surface because it's gotten so old. A lot of overgrown vegetation, so it creates all these bumps. And then missing connections where you can't get from the sidewalk itself to the street without stepping down. I guess my text is right in front of that missing connection, but many of you probably know. Here's an example of where the sidewalk is a little bit up over the street surface, so anybody who really does have limited mobility would have a bit of a drop off to get down if they want to cross the street. This section of sidewalk is rather narrow for getting a wheelchair through, not to mention the difficulty going over the cracks that are filled in with grass. See here. Down at the pier, and at the border crossing, I just wanted to show that when we looked at this, we looked at, the striping wasn't done when we originally did this, but we looked at using the pier parking lot as for walking, for instance, on bikes instead of going around that corner of the road, because that's a little bit more dangerous with sight lines and stuff. So the suggestion is to have people come down through here and to stripe potentially a walking or biking trail path through here to keep cars out of it.
Do you have a town on that actually owns the state?
Okay, good to know. Okay. Thank you. And then at the border crossing, there are no striped crosswalks across this four-way intersection. And there is a lot of traffic coming through there, so this is a difficult area for people from those neighborhoods to cross over to come into town. Five-way intersection, yeah. Even more difficult. Right, so all the more reason for a crosswalk. For what it's worth, they do help. Okay, so then in looking at bicycle infrastructure conditions, again, we looked at the shoulder width, and since this map was created, we have gotten some new ideas from the Department of Transportation about how to rate shoulder or bike conditions, and what this map does not take into account, although it does give us some good information about the width of shoulders, or and in this case we use the term shoulders loosely. We're looking at the overall width of the paved road, and then subtracting the standard travel lane requirement, and then that gives us a little bit of pavement left over that we call the shoulder. So that would be the bike. How much room is left over after the cars take up their space for bikes to get through, and that's what we're calling the shoulder. So what this doesn't show us is that some of these neighborhood streets, even though they may have very narrow shoulders or none at all, the traffic count is so low on them that they are actually very safe for biking. And so the coloration here, well, you'll see in the next map, when we made a recommended routes, and we're showing the bikeability of certain routes, the orange and red colors tell us that it's not a very safe route, but some of these ones, like on Church Street and School Street, they're very low traffic, even though the street is very narrow. So again, this is a draft, and I'm not sure that that's an accurate reflection of how safe those sections of the street are or not. And I'd welcome any comments from you guys about your experience on those streets, but we will revisit the ratings on the bikeability maps. But the walkability, again, is based on those DOT standards, and looking at where are there some major obstructions to accessibility.
What's the walkability of the white roads that don't have any color?
Well, again, we're just looking at, we're just focusing on recommended routes to get, we didn't do all of the sidewalks. We just looked at the most direct connections and the most efficient connections between where people live and where they're trying to get. We could certainly take that further in the future if the community would like that, but for now, this is what we focused on. To assist the school with giving out information to the kids about, if you live here, here's the best route for you to get to school. So some quick recommendations about how to get the most value in putting energy or funds into fixing some of the issues with the sidewalks. Installing curb cut connections on Main Street, repairing School Street sidewalk and installing curb cut connections, repair Church Street sidewalk surfaces, widen paved shoulders on Washington Street, install crosswalks at the border crossing intersection. And what the intent by making these recommendations is to, you can see how the colors are different, and the red is telling us that it's the least safe, and the green is telling us that it's the most safe. The intention of these recommendations is to, if you can imagine, somebody gave me this image yesterday, if you can imagine the green streets being the most valued, the most desirable color for the streets. If you just imagine, you can make a couple of improvements and the green just kind of spreads out and overtakes the other colors. That's what the hope for some of these recommendations would be, is that if those improvements were done, you would get the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak, for improvements in opening up the most important routes that we've highlighted here. So recognizing that there are a number of other streets that need work as well, we're just focusing on those main connected routes. And then some longer term investments that are recommended in the plan incorporate all of the other streets that aren't highlighted in this study. And I do have, I am going to leave with you tonight the plan that we wrote so that you can look it over at your leisure and get back to us with any questions or suggestions before we finalize the report and give it to you. So some next steps that we would recommend, you were just talking about committees, we would recommend that the community forms a committee for bike ped committee to look at some of the issues with the sidewalks and consider some of the recommendations that were made and prioritize what the community considers to be improvements or investments that we would like to make. And that committee might work with the select board, the public works department, and bicycle friendly, Lubec, the new school group, and interested community members to do that work. And then the council of governments is always here for you to help you with planning and with securing funds for new projects that you might come up with in the future. And what we would hope for you is that you would put together some sort of a, call it a capital improvements plan for your bike ped routes. And so to do that, you would